Right, I think let's get started. Obviously, as more people join, hello to Elaine from sunny but cold Scotland. It's sunny but cold where we are as well, so you're in good company. So thank you everybody for joining us. This is our kind of annual webinar that we host in the lead up to the closing date for the International Quality Awards, which we're delighted are returning for the 8th time. We have got 3 of our fantastic judges with us this afternoon. So we will start with some introductions and then we will move on to some of the questions. Obviously, I will put some questions to the judges, but really this is for our attendees to ask any questions that you might have about the International Quality Awards as a whole, about individual categories that you might be interested or considering in applying to. So please do, rather than the chat, to make sure that we don't lose anything, if you have a look at the bottom of your screen, you will see that there is a Q&A box. So please do pop any questions that you have at any point into the Q&A box. It can be, as I say, about any of the categories specifically, or about the process as a whole. But do pop your questions in there and we will put as many as we can to our judges today. So let's start with some introductions, shall we? So I'm not a particularly pivotal person in this process, but I am the events manager at the CQI. So just introducing myself, because if any of you do get in touch with us with anything kind of outside the scope of this webinar, it's probably me that you will be hearing back from. So hello to everybody. But more importantly, let's move on to our judges. So I'll just kind of work around my screen and we will start with you, please, Alan, if you'd like to just introduce yourself to everybody on the call.
Will do. Hi, everybody. My name's Alan Grogan. I'm a head of quality at Nuclear Waste Services. I'm the head judge for the Quality Professional of the Year, and I'm a charter member.
Lovely. Thank you, Alan. Angélique?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. So I'm a quality professional and a continuous improvement practitioner. So I've been working with multiple organizations in leading change and transformation program to improve customer value and business performance while fostering a quality culture within those organizations. So I started my career in France in 2000 in the construction sector, and I am now a consultant working for Catalyst Consulting. And this accent is because I am French.
And Angélique, you have the unique position of having won an International Quality Award.
Yes.
You are Quality Professional of the Year. And remind me what year it was?
It was in 2019. 2019,
fantastic. And you have since judged both that category, and this year you were judging Quality Team of the Year.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do.
Fantastic.
With great pleasure.
It's lovely to have you as part of the process again. And last but by no means least, Natalie.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Natalie Shoemark. I am the head of quality for Aspire Defence Services Limited, where I've now been in my current position for the last 9 years. Alongside that, though, I've had a career with CQI for over 10 years now, in a number of volunteering roles, and I've been fortunate enough to be a judge of the International Quality Awards over the last 7, and this will be my 8th year. This year, however, slight change for me, so I'm moving away from emerging talent, and I'm very excited to be the head judge for the Developing Quality Talent Award. So I'm honoured to be with you today.
Fantastic. And that's obviously our new award for this year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, as the webinar progresses. Fantastic. Thank you all. So I think we will get started. Just for those who have joined us in the last kind of few minutes, just firstly a welcome and thank you for joining us. And just a reminder that there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or your phone. So if you do have a question that you would like one of the judges to answer, please do pop your questions in there and we will make sure that we get through as many as we can. I can see there's already 1 or 2 coming through, which is fab. But we will get started. First of all, it's a question I'm going to put to all 3 of you. And forgive me if I look like I'm looking away, but I've got my separate screen with my questions kind of ready. So I'm not distracted, I promise. So all three of you have judged for several years in various categories. And in the past, we've kind of heard our kind of best entries, our finalists, shortlisted entries, described as having some magic dust. So for people to really make their application stand out, they need to sprinkle some of that magic dust over their entries, which is lovely. But what is magic dust? So I guess the question really is, what as judges, what are you looking for in an application that will make you want to find out more and will make an application stand out? Let's go with Angélique first.
Okay, so I would say that when we read the application, what we expect is to read kind of a compelling and authentic story. We really want to understand the challenges that the quality professional or the quality team have been through within the organization, and how they've managed with the people around them to make the change happen. So and I would say it's having some strong evidence of the benefits of the change that they've made, and also to be able to explain why they approach things in the way they did, and how do they ensure that what they've done is the right things to do. Because as a quality professional, and we can do so many different things, but often we don't have many resources. So how do we make sure that actually what we do is really is going to have the most impact within the organization?
Fantastic. And Natalie, I can see you nodding along there. What would you like to add to that?
Absolutely. So I think the key word for me that Angélique used is authentic. So I think in the application, bringing yourself to it is really important, and being able to see you, or as your organisation, what it is that makes you stand out from the crowd. I think importantly, clearly answering the question is good, because again, as Angélique says, there's an awful lot that as quality professionals we do, but I think it's really about honing in on what are the specifics that really demonstrate around context, leadership, governance, assurance and improvement. I think also having your data presented clearly and being able to see those clear results really helps sell that to us as judges. But also for me, one of the key sections is around leadership, because I think that's the real area where you can demonstrate how you go above and beyond. And I think seeing that from a judge's perspective, it's what brings it alive. And it's quite hard to do that on paper, but when you read the application and you can see the passion coming through, that's what the magic dust really is.
Fantastic. And Alan, anything to add?
Yeah, just echoing all of that. But I think the one thing as well, you can imagine that we've got, as judges, we've got quite a few submissions, all in the same format, all in the same look. And one thing that's really important to us is we want to enjoy what you write. So don't make it plain, don't make it mundane. Please have some energy, some enthusiasm about what you're writing, and sort of so for us that makes it really easy for us to judge. It makes it really difficult if it's really difficultly slow to read. So yeah, so make it really interesting as much as you can, and put lots of good visuals in your evidence as well. That's really important.
And so I guess that's where the supporting slides come into play. And I know that we often get a lot of questions about, well, what do I include in my slide? Shall I include photos of certificates? Shall I include data? Do I include, all sorts of things? So how would you kind of, Alan, we'll stick with you for a moment. How would you suggest that people use those supporting slides to help kind of get that energy and that enthusiasm and get some of that data across?
There's a couple of things that you probably want to make sure you definitely do. Is you don't want to just regurgitate what you have in your text into your evidence. So you want some evidence in there to show that there's a little bit of that, but by writing things twice, it doesn't add any value to us. So if you're showing that evidence, make sure you do show some evidence, but make it really clear that you've got the opportunity to utilize two different media forums. So use them as wisely as you can and make sure they're really visual. If you want to use graphs, that's really good as evidence, because that's really important. If you want to show that you've made an improvement, then show you've made that improvement, whether it's a trained graphs or some sort of evidence, and keep the photographs down to a minimum. In my mind, it's good to show that you've been involved in this, that, and the other, but try and make it more about the evidence of what you're trying to put across.
Angélique, Natalie, is there anything you'd like to add to
Yeah, I would say within those slides, I am a visual thinker, so I completely agree with Alan. If I don't see things, I really need to see a graph that explain the data to demonstrate the result, to demonstrate that what has been done has really created an impact within the organization. And the fact that we are making things more visual will really show that people care about how to communicate information to us. So my recommendation would be within their application is, what do they want us to know about what they are proud of? And what do they want us to see? So using some visual and proper evidence. And also, what do they want us to feel about their application? And because if they think of those three questions when they write their narrative and they select their evidence and their visual, it will really make us want to meet with them and to get to know more about the work that they've done. So that's what I would recommend. Yes, and Alan said also about don't do any repetition and or duplication. This is really important because within the application we've got 5 different criteria, or sometimes a bit more depending on the category, but often we've seen some duplication. We say the same things several times. I don't think it's needed. I think, probably people have done a lot of work, so try to select the criteria where the criteria that would be more relevant for what they have to demonstrate.
Lovely. And Natalie, any final thoughts on that?
I think echoing most of that, I think the slides are the opportunity to really sell yourself, because they are the visual part of the application. So I would agree, remove all duplication. I think in my experience from our winners, I would say that the winners' slide packs have probably been one of the key elements in what we've actually reviewed as judges, because they are the thing that you look at and they are the thing that kind of really brings everything to life. They are the bits that provide the supporting evidence. And I think back to some of the winners that we've had, they've been quite unique, and they've also been the way that the individuals have brought themselves to the presentation, I suppose. So yeah, really focus in on those slide packs, because I think they are really important.
And I think it's maybe a good time as well to just point out for anybody who's applying for the first time that in all categories apart from Quality Organisation of the Year, you get 6 supporting slides. And so the kind of thinking behind that is that you have 1 slide per criteria and then an additional slide for kind of anything that you can't fit on. And then with Quality Organisation of the Year, it's 8 slides. So again, it's 7 because there's slightly more criteria for that award, and then an 8th slide for kind of any overflow. So that it kind of leads us quite nicely, Angélique, some of what you said onto some of the questions that are already starting to come through. So let's we'll start tackling some of those. So we've got a question here from Stuart. Good afternoon, Stuart, who says that the organisation I work for are looking at submitting an application for Quality Team of the Year. Per competency, would you recommend a single subject as evidence or multiple, taking into account the fact that there's obviously a limited word count, and we also, as we've just said, have a limited number of slides? So how would you suggest, how do people kind of pick out the highlights, the best way to kind of demonstrate their competencies against each of the criteria?
So what I would, so first of all, is really to understand the purpose of each criteria. So what is the question that is asked, and to use the professional map to help to understand the question. And then I would say, yes, the first exercise to do is to define the scope. What would be in and out? So do we have to have one single theme or two? It depends on how many evidence you've got, and it depends also if those two themes are related or not. So if they aren't related, it might be difficult to tell the story about those two things in one single application. But if they are related, then it would be easy to show the interaction between the two themes within the application. That could work. But I think what would be good as well is to try to demonstrate. So really to select what the theme that the teams is the most proud of. And it's not only, so if it's for the quality team of the year, it's not only about the quality team itself, but what is the organization is the most proud of, and how the change has impacted the people outside of the quality team as well. So, and how the quality team has brought the people into this journey, and what did they do differently to make things happen? Because often we've got a problem and we try different things and it does not work. And one day we're going to do something that would be different. We're going to tackle things in a different way that will make the impact that we want. And so if you've got two different themes, then select the one where you've had a more innovative approach to solve the problem or to make the change happen. And that would be my recommendation. Hope that answered the question.
I hope that did too, but Stuart, if you do have any follow-on questions, obviously do feel free to pop them in and we can bring it back up. But I think also, you know, you mentioned at the beginning, Angélique, it's important that that all entries are recognised, that we attach equal weighting to the approach and to the results. So we've mentioned evidence quite a lot, and we've mentioned kind of how people can present that, but we also want to know kind of how they did it, what the thinking was, what led to those kind of decisions in order to kind of move forward in that way. And then what evidence have you got that it worked? And obviously, as we are in the business of quality, what lessons have been learned from that and rolled back into kind of evolving.
And if I may, because I'm just thinking of something else about that, but also when within the criteria, we've got the context. So, and depending on the context of the organization and how you're going to explain that context and the challenges that the organization are facing, then you might select the theme that would apply the most to this context. So you need to make a relationship between the theme that you're choosing for your application and the context of your organization. That would be another way to select your theme.
Fantastic. Well, we've had a verbal thumbs up from Stuart in the chat, okay, so hopefully that did answer his question. So we'll move on then slightly. So Alan, let me come to you, and Natalie, you might want to feed into this as well from your previous judging of the emerging talent. But we know that sometimes the individual awards, there can be a bit of resistance from people to enter those. We know that that sometimes people struggle to kind of put their head above the parapet, so to speak, and kind of really champion themselves, which obviously is the nature of these individual awards. But also we know that sometimes there's a feeling that the winner needs to have done something really extraordinary to make them stand out, whereas actually some of our previous winners in both the individual categories have just, you know, have performed business as usual, but just done it in a really fantastic way that they've been able to demonstrate. So what would you say, Alan, and then we'll come to you as well, Natalie, to anybody who is thinking of entering one of our individual awards, but might be finding it difficult to know how to sell themselves?
Yeah, they're probably slightly different from each of the individual awards. So the Quality Professional of the Year, the one thing that you don't want to do for the Quality Professional of the Year is just talk about your day job a little bit. Because if you say I'm a quality engineer and I do this and I do that and that, and else, we'll look at it and say, yeah, that's what I'd expect from a quality engineer. The whole point of the Quality Professional of the Year is you're doing something that in a maybe an innovative way, in an interesting way, maybe a real different success, maybe something. I'm saying Angélique's case when she won the Quality Professional of the Year, it was really extraordinary how she did what she did. It made a huge impact, and it didn't feel like doing the day job. So that's a really important element of why you would do that. And the second point as well is because there is the Emerging Talent Award, and then you've got the Quality Professional of the Year award, and you've got that. Should I be going for emerging talent, or if you're a youngster, say, or should I be going for the Quality Professional of the Year? And that's really down to you. But I'd suggest if you haven't gone through the Emerging Talent Award and you are a youngster, go through that first. We have had this year, we had a case of people that went through the Emerging Talent, and then later this year that they went for the Quality Professional of the Year. It's the right thing to do. So if you have any concerns about which way you should go for the Emerging Talent first. Quality Professional of the Year, really you are talking about something that's quite extraordinary a little bit to win the Quality Professional of the Year.
And I think also worth pointing out at this point that you have to be a chartered member or chartered fellow to qualify for the Quality Professional of the Year. It's the only award that we have that has entry criteria alongside the overall criteria. And Natalie, just before we come to you on that, we do have a question here which relates to what you just mentioned, Alan, which from Claire, who's asked, can I use a topic or achievement in the application that would be used for a case study for my chartership application?
You want me to answer that one?
Yes, please.
I would expect that if you've applied for the awards, that's got to be a bit of a tick in the box for going towards chartership. That's my thought process on that.
Fantastic. And Natalie, what have you got to add from the emerging talent perspective?
Yeah, so I think Alan's right. So from the emerging talent side of life, it is slightly different because a lot of what you are talking about is BAU, because as an applicant you are within the first 5 years of your career. So the fact of the matter is you are quite often going to be working for an organisation where you are more influenced around what it is that you need to do on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to making those decisions yourselves. That said, however, that's not the case in all applicants that we see, but generally that's probably the common theme. So I think it's okay to put about BAU. I think what in those applications we are actually looking for, though, is where you are able to have some influence, where you have brought your ideas to the table, and I think where you are able to kind of share those things that you have got some key results from yourself. So you know, don't shy away from saying this is what my organisation has asked me to do, but here was my spin on that, because I think that's what we're really looking for in the Emerging Talent Award, and showing how you are kind of working yourself and how you are, you know, developing your career. I think the other thing to kind of mention there, you say about the membership criteria for the Quality Professional of the Year. Yes, we don't have that in emerging talent, but I think in this particular category, it's really useful to understand, so what are you doing for your own CPD and your development, and what are you going to use this award to do for you in the future? You know, what leverage does this bring? And I think that's really quite important when you're thinking about, again, that leadership section. I think just going back to your very first question that you asked us as well, Katie, as I've been listening, I've been sort of reflecting. One of the other things to bear in mind is the written application is almost like stage gate 1. It's like applying for a job in some respects, because it's your first engagement with the judges. So what we see in those slides and what we see first off is what then makes us think, oh, okay, there's something in that, I'd like to hear more. So getting this bit right is it's no mean feat. I'll be honest with you, it is no mean feat, and we see some amazing applications as part of this process, and I think it's also worth sort of knowing that, you know, where we can, we do give feedback to individuals who have sort of shone through, so you know, it's but just getting that bit right is quite important.
Fantastic. And actually, just kind of on that, Natalie, we've you mentioned obviously it's people within the first 5 years of their career, and we've got Chris who's asked a question picking up on the use of the word youngster in terms of emerging talent, and it's not necessarily people who are at the beginning of their overall career. It can be people who have had a career change or
Absolutely, and I think it's really worth bearing that in mind. It is the first 5 years of their career in quality, so we do look at all sorts of people that have changed career, moved from one occupation into another, and quality is new to them. So yes, it's not just youngsters, it's people new to the profession.
Fantastic. And the response that we had to that was few. So hopefully that is hopefully that is music to Chris's ears, and we look forward to welcoming an application from him. So Natalie, we'll stick with you for a moment, because obviously Emerging Talent is where we have worked with you previously, but as you mentioned in your introduction, we have got a new category, which is the Developing Quality Talent category, and the process behind this has very much emerged from some of the patterns that we've seen across the Emerging Talent Award previously, and also to some extent the Quality Professional of the Year Award. So what have we learned from our emerging talent? This might be putting you on the spot a little bit, but what have we learned from our emerging talent winners? Why about kind of how organisations develop talent, and what are we hoping to see in entries to this new category this year?
Okay, so I think firstly it's very exciting to be involved in this because it is a new award, but also I think really I think it's going to bring much more than just an award winner. So let me expand on what I mean by that. So first and foremost, what we've seen through the emerging talent category is that there are lots of organisations out there that really invest in people. And I think that they should be celebrated. There are lots of companies that put various development programs in place to support quality professionals, from apprenticeships through to grad recruitment schemes, all the way through, which is great. But it's more than that. I think it's also about opening up opportunity. And again, one of the key things that we have seen in emerging talent is that quite often the candidates that kind of come through are wholeheartedly backed by the organisations that they work for. So there's an awful lot of support in actually, you know, getting their applications through, and they really believe in the people that they work on. So I think seeing some of that and celebrating that is really important. I think the other thing though, and what I mean about this being much broader than just a winner, through a lot of the work that I've done in my time with the CQI, is that it is recognised by organisations that we do have a skills gap, and we do struggle to recruit good quality professionals. Actually, this award presents an opportunity for sharing best practice and lessons learned around those organisations that are actually providing really good frameworks for their people. And hopefully the case studies that we generate as a result of these awards will actually help to share further best practice and actually spread that throughout other organisations. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity, and I look forward to seeing the applications that we get through. I think it's going to be really good.
And I think also, you know, that's such an important point about the awards as a whole. Of course, it's fantastic to recognise individuals, organisations, teams, initiatives that are doing amazing things. But, you know, we are the Chartered Quality Institute. We also want to be sharing that best practice so that other people can learn from it. And that's a really important aspect to why we do this in the first place. Alan, I don't know, did you want to add anything to that from a quality professional perspective?
I don't think so, because I think I already answered that in the previous comments. But no, I just wanted to encourage people with this, because I think if we go back to the early days of where we're doing the quality awards, it's quite a small affair and it's just grown and grown and grown. And so this is a great opportunity to market yourself, but also market your business. So utilize that opportunity.
Fantastic. Now we've got a question here from another Alan. Alan, you've asked a couple of things and I think some of them have already been covered. So I'm just going to address your most recent question about evidence, but if there's anything that we've missed, then do feel free to resubmit it into the chat. But Alan's asking about evidence, and this is something that we do get asked every year, in terms of what kind of period should those stats and should that data and should that evidence cover? Are we talking about the last calendar year? Are we asking further back than that? You know, where should people kind of focus on that from a data perspective? Angélique, if we come to you first.
I would say sometimes we've got some application where people have started working on a theme, on a problem, and it's still early days in the implementation, and then they don't have enough evidence to show the impact of the change. So I would say in that case, it might be better to wait to get some more evidence, because we know that the approach and the result are equally important within the application. Unless we want to do the application as a learning process to help ourselves to stand back regarding what we've done, and then to wait for the following year to get enough evidence. But yeah, I think, you know, again, it will depend on the topic, but I would say 6 months of evidence to demonstrate the impact would be kind of a standard or a minimum. Would you agree with me, Alan and Natalie?
Yeah, I was just that's a really good point to make, that actually, because I was thinking the other way. So it's a historical data. So I was thinking the potential that you may be working on a project for a few years, and you want to show that before you started on that project a few years ago, that you made the improvements over that time, and that's not a problem. But you're absolutely right. If there's no evidence of the improvement and not enough evidence of that improvement, you really haven't shown, you can't really answer the question properly.
And it will also depend on, you know, how often you can collect the data. If you collect the data on a daily basis, you know, then of course, you know, you will be able to demonstrate the impact quicker than if you get the data on a monthly basis. But making sure that you've got enough historical data to confirm the effectiveness of your change is really key to succeed.
And so I guess that's also part of the context, isn't it, of the situation in terms of what that data looks like.
Yeah, and also is about sometimes when we do changes, we need to understand. So we need to understand from the beginning, you know, what is the data that I want to collect? What are the metrics that I want to make, to set up so I can demonstrate the progress at the end of the implementation of the project? Is something, it's something to think of at early stage, to make sure that you will collect the data and you will be able to have this data to back up the effectiveness.
And I suppose making sure that that data is really clearly explained, so we
Yeah.
don't, you know, including a bunch of KPIs on a supporting slide is not going to be helpful for the judges if you don't understand the kind of context to which those markers are.
Yeah, that's so true. It happened. I remember we had a few applications where the applicants were throwing so many different metrics, but actually those metrics were not that related to the theme that they were trying to explain to us. So we have to remember less is more. It's better to have, 2 or 3 metrics that are very relevant than, a list of metrics that actually we don't know why those metrics have been added to the application. So I think, yeah, be selective. It's a good thing.
It can be really
A
hard,
good
I think,
practice. Yeah,
particularly
it
when
is.
particularly when you're, I mean, for everybody, but particularly teams and organisations and the specialist initiatives where you've got so much that you want to tell. But I think it's also, isn't it, it's about getting the balance of what you want to tell and what other people want to hear, because they're not necessarily always aligned. Natalie, have you got anything you'd like to add there?
So I echo all of that. I think I'd go back to something that Angélique said earlier on, which is around really thinking about what it is that you want to actually tell in the first place. So my advice would be for each of the sort of sections to maybe sit down and think about, okay, so what are my examples in those areas? And then whittle it down to the ones that actually best answer the question and the ones where you have best got the evidence to be able to show this was the improvement that I made, these were the results that I've got to demonstrate that, and this is how I know that it's working. And if you're quite strict with those parameters, you'll find that yes, there's loads of good stuff that you want to celebrate and talk about. Put some of those as highlights on your extra slide, but when you're thinking about actually responding to each of the 5 criteria or however many criteria you've got depending on your award, narrow it down, because then that way you can be quite selective about what it is that you're showing, and it then makes it much easier for us. I think also it's worth kind of noting, what we see a lot of information around things like non-conformance, and this is the volume of non-conformances that we addressed and all that sort of stuff, and this is the number of audits that we delivered. That's great, but again, having some context around those numbers and why that's important and what improvement that's brought for your business, it is really important. So just numbers on their own don't really demonstrate a picture, so really think about that kind of richer story that you're telling us.
Angélique, do you want to add to that?
I think, and also when it comes to the evidence and the metrics, I think it's quite important to cover 2 types of metrics: the lagging and leading indicators. Having a set of both, I think it's quite interesting. And I would say as well, once you've written your application and you've selected the metrics that you want to show us, before submitting the application, I would recommend to ask someone in your, in your company, someone who hasn't been involved in that project, to read through the application. So as a critical friend, because you have to remember, we don't know anything about your organization when we read your application. We don't know anything about, what you've done. So getting someone who has a fresh pair of eyes and can give you some feedback on your application before you submit it could be really helpful. And they will help you to see things that you may not have seen, or tell you where you need to add some more clarity. And also, I think it's a good practice because it's to use that to communicate the project that you've done with someone else that is not aware of. And it's also to show your leadership skills, that you value the feedback from other people. So that would be another tip.
Natalie or Alan, anything you want to add at this point?
No.
No?
That's great advice.
Critical friend, fantastic. We won't talk too much about this because it obviously will relate to fewer people who are entering, but just to kind of have a look at what happens after the submission stage. So as Angélique said, you know, you kind of read the written application. We do assemble our panels to try and make sure we have a broad representation of, you know, both UK based and international. We try to get kind of a broad range of sectors as well. So to make sure that we do kind of have that kind of critical eye, but never assume that anybody that's picking it up knows anything about you, your company or your sector. So we close on the 31st of January. The submissions get handed over to our judges. You then score them based on that initial criteria. And then we invite our kind of top 3 or 4 entries in each category for interviews. If we just talk a little bit about the interview process, how does that differ then from the written kind of process, and what is it that you would be looking for at that stage that might differ? Natalie, if we come to you first.
Yeah, sure. So again, we talked about earlier, I said about the application being the stage gate, your interview being the opportunity where you really kind of bring to life everything that you've told us, and it really is that. So I think from my experience with emerging talent, one of the key things that I would say around all that have been shortlisted is we see such passion in those that kind of make it to that stage, and I've got to say it's one of the best experiences to be part of is being part of the interview panels, because you get to meet some great people, you get to hear some fantastic stories about the work that they've done, and it's an honor to see kind of the passion for these people that are kind of putting themselves forward. And I think also, particularly with emerging talent, I would not underestimate how nerve-wracking it actually is for the individuals to be in that room with, you know, most of us relatively seasoned professionals, and don't forget, you know, these guys are in their first 5 years of you know, being a quality professional. So to stand up and say I want to be counted is really something to kind of celebrate, really. So the way that it differs is that, you know, we are looking for more detail. We are looking for the answers to our questions. So we review all of the packs again ahead of the interviews, and we prepare some questions for each individual. And where there are sort of metrics, we are looking for the individual to be able to talk us through and actually really kind of broaden the narrative that they have started in the initial application. And then again, as I say, you know, I think there are some sort of key things that we then kind of look for, which kind of, you know, sets the winner above in that category for that year, and that's about, you know, their leadership and what kind of you know, really makes them stand out, I suppose.
That's it. Thank you. Alan, what would you like to add there?
No, to be honest, I'm just echoing the same thing. That it's really important that we sort of have a little bit of a picture after we've seen the submission, but we haven't seen the bigger picture. And what we don't really want to do is get a sort of regurgitation exactly of what we got in the words. So in some ways we want to see it. That's the really big opportunity to sell yourself as a person or as a team, to really put that, and don't just follow the script that you've just been following. It's important to you still to take the aspects that we're requiring, but for us is, yeah, we're looking for something that, okay, that's going to stand out, that's different.
And Angélique, with the team, quality team, and similarly with organisation, digital and ESG, and developing quality talent, we allow up to 4 participants to attend the interview to represent that entry. And so how does that differ? Obviously juggling sort of multiple voices, but what is it that you like to kind of hear from at that point?
I think what happens during those interviews, so basically we read the application, and we, as Natalie said, we can feel the passion, and So what's happening, there are things that we are really interested in, and depending on our background, and because often, you know, the judges, they've got different backgrounds, so we will come up with different questions. And that's what is really enjoyable, because we will cover a different perspective from the application. And so we will see something that we think we need to understand the why it has been done like that. Why did they do that the way they did? And these metrics, okay, what does that mean? You know, so we ask questions like this. And also, if we think that the application was really, really good, but there was one aspect that was not covered, then we will ask some more questions about that aspect to confirm that actually we cover everything that was needed. So that's basically how it happened. And because I was I went to an interview, so and I remember it was like a job interview, and it was probably, you know, the most challenging job interview of my life, but that was also the most enjoyable. So and I think I'm going to remember this day for, you know, all my life, because often when you do this job, you know, you feel so alone sometimes. You are the expert within the organization, and you know, people rely on you. And the fact that you can share your passion, what you do, with some other expert in the room, and they give you the assurance that actually what you're doing is okay, and it helps you to gain confidence, and to go back, even if you're not the winner. You know, I think it's a wonderful learning experience, because you go back to your business and you've got this confidence that you were doing the right thing, and you go back as well with some more idea, because you have explained what you do. You know, you've processed the information in your brain yourself, and you know, some more ideas are coming through the conversation, and that, I think it's a good investment. So sorry, you know, I've replied a bit widely, but yeah, that was to share my experience.
Fantastic. And I'm glad that you followed it being the hardest interview of your life with the most enjoyable, because we're trying not to put people off from applying.
No, but I think, you know, so you go through that because it's a lot, it's an investment, you know, it's not something, you're not, you know, you won't just write your application in just a couple of hours. You know, it takes more time than that. And the more time you spend in doing that, and the most, you know, learning you will get out of your exercise. So I think it's really an investment in your own career, and also in trying to improve the value that you can bring to your organization. So.
Thank you. And I think it's also good at this point to just remind people that we do offer feedback throughout the process. So if you apply and you're not shortlisted, we send feedback around each category and kind of the overall things that we recognise across the categories for the kind of singled out the stronger entries compared to those that maybe didn't quite score as highly. So we do send that out at the end of the first stage of process, and then for our finalists we also send out more detailed reports based on the interview process. So I think we are almost coming to an end. So we're going to come back to you all once more for your kind of final takeaway, top tip for entry, and why people should apply to the awards this year. So I'll give you a moment to think about that whilst I just remind everybody of some key details. So I'm just going to pop in the chat the link to the awards. This is where you can find out more about the categories, more about the criteria, You can download the application guide, which we really recommend everybody looks at. It talks through everything that we've covered here and more, about the process, and kind of, you know, how each step of the process works. So do take a look at that webpage. If you have any further questions off the back of this session, maybe something occurs to you as you start writing, then do feel free to email. As I say, that will come through to me at the other end of that, which is International Quality Awards at quality.org. I'll pop that in the chat in a moment also. I won't start typing now because I'll lose my train of thought. So yeah, if you have any questions at any point, do feel free to pop them to me. If it's not something that I can answer myself, then it's something that I will contact one of the judges for further information on. But like I say, have a look at the application guide first of all, because most of the questions that we get asked are now built into that guide. We try to make sure that we update it every year so that it remains as relevant as possible. And most importantly, the deadline for entries is Friday the 31st of January at midnight with GMT. So obviously it's an international awards, and when you go onto the portal, the deadline will show in your local time zone. So if it's just so that you're aware, so if you do log on in a different part of the world, it will show you what time the portal will close. We cannot accept any late entries, so do make sure that you get them in time. There's plenty of time still to pull something together, so do please get started on those. I think that's everything. Is there any of the key dates I think I've missed? Quality Live, our annual conference, and the presentation of the awards is Thursday the 19th of June in London. We will likely be live streaming the awards part of the session, so we will release more information on that nearer the time. But Thursday the 19th of June, did I say July? June, Thursday the 19th of June 2025 is the date of the winners ceremony. So I will stop waffling because clearly I'm losing the plot slightly. We will come back to each of you for a final takeaway. What would you like to leave attendees with? Why should they apply? Alan, we will start with you.
Okay, yeah, just taking some of the key points that we said there, that make it interesting, make it visual, keep to the point, make sure you get lots of evidence. That's really important. Just to take some note that the judging process itself, that there's 3 of us in each category, so that we're all there as three quality professionals that sort of all usually in completely different sectors, working in completely different areas. And we take really good consideration. It takes me an awful long time to actually do my judging myself. So I go through and I'll probably read one submission one evening and then read another submission in another evening. So it isn't something we take lightly. We really put a lot of effort into it. But often we do come up to very much the same conclusion. It's amazing how often that happens, that we do sort of know. So if you have been selected, it usually means there's a unanimous element of that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alan. Angélique.
So I would say, I think it's a fantastic self-assessment and self-development exercise. It's a wonderful opportunity to recognize the great work done by individual, but also by teams and everyone working within the organization. So it's a team effort. It's really the opportunity to get to know what we do well and what we can improve. So yes, definitely a good exercise and a learning exercise, and it's challenging but very enjoyable, as I said earlier. And yeah, it really helped me to do things differently, to get to know what I should go for in the future. So
lovely. And Natalie, just before I come to you, somebody's just snuck in a last quick question, which is quick to answer, but previous year's winners for benchmarking, we have them all on the website. So if you do follow that link that I've posted in the chat, it will link you to our previous winners. It will tell you why they won. It will link you to all sorts of case studies, so that you can get an idea as to who's stood out in the past and how they've made that entry do so. Sorry, Natalie.
No problem at all. So I think for me, it's be authentic, and true to yourself in your application, because your story is what we're really interested in. And I think, just echoing some of what Angélique has said, embrace the opportunity. These types of things are an excellent means of reflection on all the good work that you have done. They can also help you to then identify those areas where you want to work on things in a different way. Not only that, by participating and coming to Quality Live, it broadens your network massively. You get to meet lots of great quality professionals in the same boat. So there's hundreds of reasons why to do it. But just putting yourself out there and being a bit vulnerable, it presents an enormous opportunity. And I strongly urge anyone that's thinking about it to have a go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all three of you for giving up your time, not just this lunchtime, but also to the process. As Alan has explained, in fact, you've all kind of explained, it is a time-consuming process. Our judges are all doing this voluntarily, and for some reason they keep coming back year on year. So we are thrilled to have their expertise kind of guiding this process. To ensure that that it has as much integrity as it can. So thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody joining. We hope to see some of your names coming through as submissions for this year's awards. And yeah, we look forward to receiving people's entries. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.